I'm Joe Alton, MD, co-author of the Survival Medicine Handbook and the Ebola Survival Handbook. When it comes to some aspects of health, even in the situations that I normally talk about, there seems to be more and more an aspect of politics to it. So today I'm dressed as a politician to ask you a question or two. A battle is raging in the United States, and it's been an eternal one. The battle between individual rights and the public health and safety. It's a uniquely American conflict and one that affects every citizen. When is it legitimate to curtail civil liberties in order to preserve the common welfare? This debate came to the forefront of the nation's consciousness when Ebola healthcare worker Casey Hickox resisted efforts at quarantine on her return from West Africa. The topic has, however, been a recurring one since the 19th century. As we learn more about the causes of infectious diseases, governments have had to make decisions relating to containment that grated on the public's sense of fairness. Resistance was often fierce in the face of diseases where the causes could only be seen if you owned a microscope. So fierce, in fact, that riots occurred in some areas when compulsory vaccination was first instituted to combat smallpox. This led not only to riots, but to legal challenges. Supreme Court decisions allowed states to impose quarantine and other strict measures to protect the public health and safety. Only in the last few decades have these decisions been questioned. The HIV epidemic brought the concept of individual privacy and informed consent into the debate. More and more, civil rights advocates were prevailing over federal and state policies. Yet mandatory health policies like immunizations for school children still exist, although they impinge on parental rights. The recent reemergence of measles and whooping cough in the U.S. argues that giving individuals this privilege has a cost. The question is, when do the risks outweigh the benefits? The answer is the same as with many other such questions. It depends. Public health dictates that people with contagious diseases undergo treatment, and that people with highly contagious diseases undergo quarantine. This was the case in the past with tuberculosis. It would certainly be the case in a community-wide epidemic of Ebola as experienced in West Africa. There, it led to mandatory measures that restricted free movement and commerce. Quarantine is widely accepted as reasonable in these situations, but what about Ebola in the United States, which has a lot more uncertainty as to the level of public risk? In these cases, the probability that harm will occur and the severity of that harm are the determining factors. With Ebola, the probability of widespread harm to U.S. citizens is, at least at present, small. Small enough that the severity of the disease has convinced few that mandatory quarantine is anything less than an infringement of individual rights. However, if Ebola or any other deadly infectious disease reaches epidemic status, the public attitude will likely change. Civil and even criminal penalties may be considered appropriate for those who violate such measures. In today's society, legal action, as in the case of Casey Hickox, to protest quarantine will be inevitable. This likely will obstruct the ability of a community to take quick action and stop spread of a disease, and the resulting effect could be disastrous. Our nation's commitment to civil liberties may be our undoing if we fail to understand the consequences of inaction. On the other hand, unreasoned panic may unjustly rob us of the freedoms our ancestors fought to protect. So the battle between individual rights and public health rages on. When one side gains, the other loses. In the uncertain future, we may all lose if we fail to achieve the balance between the two. This has been Joe Alton, MD of www.doomandbloom.net, where you'll find over 600 articles on medical preparedness for any disaster. Thanks for watching, and feel free to comment in the section below. Thanks.